and welcome to episode 3 of This Is What Came Out of Me, a podcast about anything and everything, but mostly pop culture from movies, TV, podcasts, and YouTube. Each week I talk about things that have grabbed my interest and things that I think that you out there in the ether might be interested in. I'm SierraKiloBravo. Let's get into it. First off this week, let's talk about podcasts. As I've said in previous releases, the nature of my work means that I get to listen to many different podcasts during the day, and as a result, my subscription list is currently sitting at around about 50. I listen to all sorts of things. I've got podcasts that cover history, comedy, conspiracies, and things like news deconstruction. I don't necessarily agree with all the things that are discussed on the podcast that I listen to, but I do believe in listening to a wide range of different things and points of views to help understand this world that we live in. I've got my favourites and my must-listens, and I want to talk about a few episodes that leapt out and grabbed me and my interest in the last week or so. No Agenda, yet again, did a great job of calling out news organisations on their lack of substance and fakery. On the Sunday show, which was episode 945, starting at the 45 minutes and 36 seconds mark, they highlighted just how vacuous the news stations are. The example that they gave was at the G20 convention in Hamburg, a meeting between the top 20 economies in the world, where high-level discussions take place about the state of the world and the future of everyone on it. But where did the laser focus of channels such as CNN point? They looked at President Trump's handshakes. It was quite hilarious. Of all the important things that they could have reported on, both the man on the scene and the anchor were giving a running commentary, literally a running commentary. There was even a moment where the anchor was like, okay, we have confirmation. It was Angela Merkel that initiated the handshake. The German Chancellor made the first move and stuff like that. It was completely ridiculous. They even had a body language expert on pulling apart what President Trump was doing. Now, I'm no huge fan of Trump, but geez, give the guy a break. It's like some of the news channels are completely obsessed with the guy. The No Agenda hosts, however, do a great job of calling them out on stuff like this and educating their listeners on having their ears open for this kind of empty content from the news channels. Another example of their keen ear was seen later in the show at the 1 hour, 3 minutes and 56 second mark when they were discussing the G20 protests. With some humour, they pointed out the irony of the anti-globalist protesters wearing Nike shoes and robbing Apple stores while smashing up small businesses. It really shows that these people are not actually there for the cause that they state, but rather just to cause trouble. And personally, I've got no issues whatsoever when these people get water cannoned. Anyway, listening to No Agenda is always a good time. And again, if you just want to have a bit of a laugh, have a listen to the first 10 minutes or so of their Thursday show, episode 946. Adam, one of the hosts, is still travelling and is now in Italy, and his epic rant on tourists and their selfie sticks was a great moment. He's a fantastic storyteller, and as we always say, ranting Adam is the best Adam. I always enjoy listening to No Agenda and suggest that you check that one out as well. This week on Stuff and Things, it was a little bit of a mixed bag. The first part of the show was mostly taken up with the hosts, Ian and Chewy, cringing while reading excerpts from their teenage diaries. It was pretty funny, but the highlight of the show came about 10 minutes from the end when they talked about an incident that occurred during a UFC fight in the previous weekend. One of the fighters, Justine Kish, pooped herself mid-fight, and it took all my power to not burst out laughing on the train while I listened to them relate their take on it. Here's a short clip from that part of the show.
On top of that, because it keeps going, the other person has to keep fighting. So now you're fighting a battle on two fronts. Right?
Well, one front and one back.
Yeah, there you go. Now, you're the other fighter. I'm gonna win. What the f*** fuck, she just shit herself. Oh my God, okay, they're gonna blow the whistle or hit the bell or whatever, and it'll be done, and I can stop touching her and get away from it. They're not calling it. I don't want to lose, because then I'm gonna get beat by the girl who shit herself. Gotta keep going. Hope that's not her poop that my elbow is in.
Oh, God.
The whole story is absolutely hilarious, and Justine handled it like a champ. In fact, she went so far as saying in a post-fight interview, "Shit happens." The last one for today is a new subscription for me called Ice Cream Social. I can't remember how I came across this one, but one of the hosts also co-hosts on Penn's Sunday School with the magician Penn Jillette. I really enjoyed it. They don't really have a theme or a shtick. It's just the hosts talking about the news or what's been happening to them in the last week or so. For example, they talked about road rage from merging traffic, solar panels, swimming pool toys, and things like that. They're just such naturally comedic storytellers that it was a pleasure to listen to and really entertaining. I think I'll give it a couple more listens, and if I'm still enjoying it, then they will get a permanent slot on my subscription list. Just quickly to finish off, if you've ever wondered what the answer is to the question, how do blind people know when to stop wiping? I suggest you listen to this week's episode of Your Mum's House. I think you'll find it quite enlightening. Let's change direction now and talk about movies. Here are the trailers that I've watched in the last week or so, along with a super brief review of them. I've watched a couple, and here is what I thought. First up this week is A Family Man, starring Gerard Butler and Alison Brie. It looks kind of like a standard heart-tugging family drama. But the good news is the trailer looks like it pretty much shows the whole movie, so there's probably no need to watch it. Next up is the second trailer for The Dark Tower. And to be honest, I'm still not sold on this movie. As a fan of the Stephen King series of books that it's based on, I was really looking forward to the movie, but I'm not a fan of either Idris Elba or Matthew McConaughey, and it looks, based on the trailers, to be pretty heavy on CGI, even right down to slow motion smoke, for crying out loud. I will watch this, of course, as a Dark Tower fan, but I don't think it's something that I'll be seeing in the theatres. I think I'll be watching this from the comfort of my couch. Lastly, from trailers today is The Glass Castle. Now, I absolutely love Woody Harrelson. I think he's a fantastic actor, but watching this 1-minute trailer just about made me want to scratch my eyes out. It might well be a good movie, but the trailer does not sell it well at all. I mean, they even made use of voice-over guy. I don't think that's going to be one that's high on my list when it comes out. So that's enough about trailers. Let's now talk about which movies Mrs. B and I have watched this week. There's been a few. Do you remember a few years ago there was a mining incident in Chile that resulted in 33 miners being trapped underground for 2 months? The 33 is a film about that event and stars Antonio Banderas, Lou Diamond Phillips, and Gabriel Byrne. I had thought that this was a Spanish language film, but everyone spoke English, albeit with a sometimes awful sounding Spanish accent. To be honest, that's my only criticism of the movie, because it was thoroughly enjoyable. Even though you know what happens at the end, the movie does a great job of keeping you on the edge of your seat, whether it's the initial collapse, the tensions between the survivors, or the attempts to rescue them. You can't help but feel like you're right there with them. You can't help but feel like you are right there with them. It was released last year and came to Netflix here in Australia earlier this year, and it's well worth a look. We also watched a bit of a classic this past week, Monty Python's And Now for Something Completely Different. Mrs. B and I watch Fawlty Towers on the weekends when we have dinner, and I've watched most of their stuff, but for some reason I had never seen this one. And it's fair to say that even almost 50 years later, it's still hysterically funny. The Monty Python crew have a very wicked sense of humour, and the combination of live action with collage animation makes their brand very unique, and it has stood the test of time. If you're looking for a good laugh, then I suggest you track this down and give yourself a good chuckle. We had the opportunity to watch Raw this past week as well. This is a 2016 French language film and straddles the art house and horror genres. It's about a young girl that goes to veterinary school, and some events there awaken cannibalistic cravings in her. It's a slow burning story and not big on splatter, and is more of a cerebral mess with your head type of horror than a blood and guts gore fest. It's so much better for that, and is a strong film with a great performance by the lead actress. We really enjoyed it, and I recommend it, but be warned, it's not a first date movie. We also watched The Belko Experiment. It might not be a movie you've heard of, as I don't think it went out on wide release, but I saw a trailer for it some stage early in 2016. I finally got to watch it this week, and boy, it was definitely worth the wait. The setup is simple. There's a group of office workers in an isolated building who get locked in and are told that within a certain amount of time they need to kill 2 of their colleagues. If they don't, then their captors will kill 4 of them. From there, it devolves into a fantastically bonkers movie that skillfully balances horror, black comedy, and the human psyche. I've not seen a movie quite like this in the past, and I highly recommend it. We're planning to see Dunkirk this coming weekend. I've been anticipating the release of this since I first heard about it, and especially since I heard that Christopher Nolan was directing. The trailers I've seen look outstanding, and I'm really looking forward to it finally coming out. Watch the space next week for a full review. Let's now have a look at what I have been reading. As I mentioned last week, I finished Hellstorm and am now reading The Circle and also The Better Angels of Our Nature. How, you might ask, do I read 2 books at the same time? Well, for me, it's pretty easy. I have a commute book and a home book. So when I'm riding on the train to and from work, I read The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker, and then at home in the evenings, I read The Circle by Dave Eggers. The Better Angels of Our Nature is a non-fiction book about human history and sets out to show that violence has decreased throughout our time. Now, I had expected a book heavy on numbers and figures, and it's somewhere close to 1,000 pages to be a very heavy read, but I was pleasantly surprised to find it to be a real page-turner. Pinker writes in an easy-to-digest manner, and I think the key to this being easy to take in is that it's written in sections of 2 to 3 pages. So instead of getting bogged down in pages and pages of exposition and explanation, he states its purpose, he hits his main points, and then he moves on. I'm currently about 70 pages in now, and he's slowly building his case, having so far covered subjects such as violence and human nature, the kinds of human societies, and even looking at animal communities to see how things unfold in nature. It's very interesting stuff, and I'm looking forward to working my way through the rest of it. The Circle is a fiction novel, and like me, you might be aware of this one due to a movie of the same name that's based on the book and starring Emma Watson and Tom Hanks. I haven't seen the movie yet because I wanted to read the book first. The story, it follows a young lady called May who joins a huge company which sounds a little bit like a mix between Facebook and Google. I'm going in blind to the book, so I'm not sure where the story is going, but there have been some seeds dropped about privacy and invasive technology, and I'm already engaged enough to keep reading, and I'm keen to see where it all goes. I'll update you next week on how I'm going with both of those books. On the YouTube side of things this week, not much has caught my attention. Crispy Shorts, whose real name is James, is off to Italy in the next little while with his girlfriend, and I'm anticipating some great uploads while he is travelling over there. His travel vlogs are always top-notch, and in a location like Italy, I'm expecting them to step up to another level. So that's something to look forward to in the next couple of weeks or so. In fact, if you enjoy travel vlogs, you might like to check out I Am Jake on YouTube. Jake is filming his trip around 50 states in America, and his little dog Annie and his Jeep called Jade are equal characters in his journey. I'm mentioning this because he's made his first post in a couple of weeks. Because of the places he's travelling, his internet connections are patchy, so he posts when he has a strong signal. So this week we got a new episode uploaded. He comes across as a super friendly guy who clearly loves his puppy Annie, and the places that they've been to have been amazing. His drone shots of the scenery are incredible and have really opened my eyes to just how beautiful parts of America are. Jake also has a great sense of humour, which also makes his vlogs great to watch. I'm a big fan of rallycross, and there are 2 channels covering this sport to choose from on YouTube, each covering different parts of the world. The first is FIA World Rallycross Championship, and they cover the Europe-based races, and the second is Red Bull Global Rallycross, which covers the racing in the US. In this past week, the Red Bull Global Rallycross channel released a 20-minute video which covered the 2 semi-finals and the final in the recent round in Indianapolis. Definitely worth a look if you wanted to see what the sport's about. It's an exciting sport. It's a combination of car, track racing and rally, with the drivers changing surface 2 or 3 times per lap and often including jumps. It's really entertaining stuff. So to conclude today, let's talk about TV. For the last couple of podcasts, I've talked about El Chapo, a Netflix show that we've been watching for the last couple of weeks. El Chapo is a dramatization of the life and times of the drug lord of the same name. It's 9 episodes long, and we've just finished number 7, and to be honest, we're starting to fade on it. Episode 4 that I talked about last week was definitely the highlight, but now it just seems to be in a rush, and the story is suffering for that haste. They say that El Chapo was the leader of one of the largest drug networks, yet the show has never really shown that. The show continually shows him running from the law or trying to make deals with other gangs. He never comes across as the big boss that he's supposed to be. And then all of a sudden, at the end of episode 6, he gets arrested, and episode 7 is about him being in prison. There really hasn't been much effort put into showing the scale of his network and the power that he had. And honestly, if I watched this not knowing anything about him, I would have to assume, based on what they've shown in the show, that this guy was just an upstart wannabe drug boss who ended up getting arrested. Because this is really all that they've shown, and that's what they've crammed into a handful of episodes. We've got 2 episodes left, and we're going to watch them tonight, just so that we can see out the story arc and see how it all concludes. But I'm not really sure that we will watch season 2 if they ever decide to put one out. I hate to keep comparing it with Narcos, but as the season progresses, El Chapo is really struggling to reach the watchability levels of Narcos. I'll report back next week on how the show wrapped up with those final 2 episodes. The big news, of course, on the TV front is that Season 6 of Game of Thrones is about to drop. Mrs. B and I have been fans of this show since the beginning, and with this penultimate season, anticipation is high for things to start ramping up as we storm towards the conclusion of the series next year. Something tells me that the next few weeks are going to fly past. Well, that's all for this time. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check the notes for links to the various things that I've covered today. I love yakking about all the kinds of things that we've talked about, so feel free to leave a comment and let's keep that conversation going. To aid that conversation, I'm going to pose a question for you, and I want you to let me know your answer in the comments. The question is, if you were to suddenly wake up in the year 2100, what is the first question that you would punch into Google? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm SierraKiloBravo, and this is what came out of me.